Welcome everybody to CTRMs in the era of remote work. I'm Gary Vasey with ComTech Advisory. And I think what we'll do to get started is just have each of the participants introduce themselves and make a quick comment on what they think the characteristics of a CTRM in the era of remote working might be. And let's start with ladies first, Federica.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Federica Strumia, and I am head of middle office and risk for all products at Neste, the Finnish oil and renewable diesel refinery. I have quite a long experience with the ETRM projects developments and implementations, and we have one system which we use at Neste. And so this is the only one that I know, so I don't know what is the ideal system in these times, in these difficult times. I just know that a system to be usable from working from remote, for example, should have accessibility, availability in terms of speed of the connections, and a good and solid support.
Thank you. Let's go to Alexandre.
Hello everyone, I'm in charge of risk and controls at Walter Matter, a coffee and cocoa trading company based in Geneva. Before that, I used to work for Noble and Kofco within auditing functions where I've been using many different CTRMs in different regions. I also have been reviewing some CTRM implementations. And what I can say is usually people are not happy about their CTRM. They are real, and I've rarely seen successful implementations of CRM. It's quite complex, we know that. And the main point for me for CTRM, it should cover the business needs. Our business is really complex and we have so many different needs that most of the time we are facing issues and we have to develop special functionalities that are not easy to be covering the business needs. That's the main point, and it should be flexible with all the new technologies that we are having now.
All right, and lastly, Ken, please.
Okay, thank you. Good day. This is Ken Han. I live in Houston. Right now it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I know most of you are in Europe. More than 10 years ago, my business partner, Dave Morris, and I started Enuit. Well, before we started Enuit, we actually worked for different CTRM vendors. We also worked on different CTRM projects. So we know the pain that Alex and Federica actually facing implementing our CTRM system. Recent years, technology has changed. CTRM systems somewhat have changed as well, but we believe that we can provide better tools for you right now. In terms of remote, working remotely, I think CTRM is just one of the equations in there. Of course, being able to access the systems securely and reliably is very important, but we believe that because people are actually working all remotely, different location, different time zone, I think the collaboration that a system can provide to the people to be able to replace some of the offline process is very important.
Yeah. Right, so thank you for the opening statements. Marie, maybe we can run the first polling question, which is about CTRM and business continuity, whilst we're talking through the next couple of questions. If people would go ahead and perhaps take the poll, we might get some interesting results. I wanted to kind of follow that up and ask about currently in terms of the users on the panel. How have you found your CTRM systems have coped with working from home and this business continuity issue? Federica, maybe?
Yeah. So as I said, we have already a system implemented since several years in our company, and Well, what I can say is that it has not really improved. The fact that working from home is eventually adding some complexity to a system which is already quite difficult sometimes to use, and creates issues like any other ETRM system at the end, I think. In terms of, for example, we don't use a cloud system, so we have a connectivity to the server. So this can be slowed down when you access the servers using your own Wi-Fi, for example. And we have experienced slowness in that sense, and even lack of connectivity to the servers. One day I remember we have lost the servers. And this, of course, creates a lot of panic inside the normal business users, and it can also create dangerous situations. Then one other aspect is that, of course, as every other ETRM system, we are in the process of continuously developing our tool, enhancing and creating more functionalities. And of course, this situation, not just the fact that we work from distance, but really this uncertainty situation in the markets have suggested to the management and the top management of our company to be a bit more cautious in the investments. So a lot of projects, a lot of potential developments have been frozen for the time being. So this will have, by sure, an impact also in the future. And one more aspect that I can briefly touch here is also the fact that we have some new joiners in the company, so they need to be trained in the usage of this system. And training people from distance is very difficult, even more difficult than training them face-to-face, and also supporting people because we have offices all around the world, and our experts are sitting in Geneva or in Finland. So we are a bit in the struggle in that sense as well, because typically you sit close to your colleague, you show what you do, and then there is a very fast and easy transmission of your knowledge. In this case, it's a bit more difficult and challenging.
I can imagine. Alexandre?
Yeah, in terms of remote work, we were using, similarly to Federica, we were using CTRM system in-house that we've been using for many years through VPN, and it was working fine because, yeah, for what we had to do, we did not face any issues. But now we are currently trying to implement a new CTRM system, which will be cloud-based, and we are actually now defining our needs, business needs. It takes a lot of time to define, to draw the business cases, and to see the gaps between what is offered and what we are actually needing. So that's interesting. Actually, that's an interesting phase, and it's following this pandemic. It's I think the good time to maybe move on. Gary, I think we are losing you.
Can you probably?
Okay, well, I guess the next one is probably me. I guess there's some connection issues on Gary's side, but for me, we are a CTRM vendor. We have a lot of customers and using our system. I can probably answer this question on their behalf. Most of them really don't have much problem in terms of accessing the system. Most of the customers, and they're actually accessing our system online anyway before the lockdown. It's a cloud-based application. They can access, through hosted facility and so forth. So we haven't seen much problems with that. There are some customers who install the application on premise, and of course, changing some of this, way to access. Before they access from the office, now they have to change to VPN and so forth. And there's some, change on that, and nuances on that. But those problems are resolved within hours or within a day with their IT. So from a vendor point of view, we haven't seen much of the problems. But if you look at the lockdown, things are changed from before. And before, you have people working in the same office. You know, people you can, just turn around and then ask someone sitting in a different role, and hey, have we got the payment or so forth to check on the credit, or you can talk to someone just to find out, hey, what is going on with this company, and so forth. Or you can even write, something on a paper and then pass it around and to share some of the information before making a trade decision. But all of those have changed, and there's no way that you can do that. Of course, you can still have access to text message or call someone or email someone. That all existed before. But the problem with that is you don't know if the other person that you want to talk to is readily available and be able to answer your question. And they may, just walk, some just not there. But sometimes you need the critical information right away. So we're actually looking at things from that point of view.
Okay, well, as you may have noticed, I had connectivity issues just then. So, or maybe nobody noticed, who knows? Anyway, I'm back. Are there any questions, by the way? Because right now I'm not showing any questions from the audience. And do we have any results on the poll, just out of interest?
There is one in the chat.
Aha. So there we are. So it looks like about a third seem to be doing okay. About more than half are having some issues, but are able to get by, and 7% have experienced some serious issues. That's pretty interesting. One thing that we've noticed at ComTech, talking to various people across the industry, is that many of the vendors are experiencing a sudden surge of interest. And obviously, that's partly associated with a move towards digitalization across the industry, but it also seems to be brought on by this lockdown and working from home in this remote environment. Again, what would you, if you were now looking for a new system, what would you put as those top 2 or 3 items on your checklist, out with of just meeting the functional requirements, if I might ask that? Any answers?
I would use more. I would improve the processes. So I would use the digitalization tools that are available now in order to improve the internal processes in the company, which at the moment are the heavy part of the trade flow. And there is a little question in the chat mentioning how do we manage from distance the trade flows in our CTRM. And it is true that many steps in our processes are still very manual, very much dependent on communication across different desks and different people. And sometimes they become cumbersome or very heavy, and maybe digitalization, thinking about blockchain, intelligence, artificial intelligence, and all these area would be a good synergy for us and for the work. And if there was a way to implement an ETRM which is also using that type of functionality, this would be interesting.
Right. And Alexandre?
Yeah, for me, what is missing and what I would tend to put as a first priority would be the reporting. And now we see more and more business intelligence modules that are integrated into the CTRMs, and I find it really, really powerful. And we need more and more different reporting types for external stakeholders. It could be for compliance, it could be for management, traders. And if you have a flexible business intelligence, and you are able to extract quickly the information. You can react quickly to different situations like we are facing now. So this would be the main one for me. And then I would use the workflows, approvals, automations, digitalizations, all these new technologies that are helping us to be faster and to be more efficient.
I was going to say, I mean, I would have thought that one of the top requirements would be workflow. Going back to Ken's point, as I returned from losing connectivity, he was talking, as I recall, about you know, interactions between people and validating that some activity had been done. And I'm sure that workflow is really key in order to collaborate in a safe and secure sort of way. Ken, any further comments on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, actually, if you look at it, it's only 4 of us, and we got Federica, the first one, and Alex, the second one. Automatically, I'll be the third one. So in that case, even though you had a hiccup in connecting, so we know that I'm the third one. So if a system can automatically remind me, say, Ken, you're the next one. So we won't be actually in a situation that we have to wait. But you know, similarly, in a CTRM system, I think Federica and Alex and both the 2 issues that you mentioned are exactly the main, you know, issues with the CTRM systems. I just give a simple example. Let's say we have, you know, let's say a customer and they are managing metals trading, managing warehouses. You can imagine their operation team is very, very busy every day, and you're just trying to make sure, you know, the customer order is being, you know, filled, and the trucks and being arranged and to deliver. But before they actually release the shipment from the warehouse into the buyer, and first thing they need to do is they have to check the credit. So that's the first thing they need to do. So, you know, sometimes they check credit on one system and go to one system and then log in and check the credit. Then they check the payment on the accounting system. And then sometimes they need to calculate the exposure on a spreadsheet and talk to multiple people to get the information. So this is a typical process. Unfortunately, it's not the most efficient way of running, you know, operation. What if your system, your CTRM system, like Federica just mentioned, that can handle all these steps for you? You know, the operator, they simply, before they do the release, and they need to go to the system to print out a release document, right? So before they print the release document, the system will block them if the counterparty, if the buyer has some credit issue. So in this way, they don't even need to do the offline calculation and check the information all around. It's only needed when they actually start to do that. That will dramatically improve the efficiency. So that's just one example, but you know, this simple example, in order for the system to do it, is actually not that simple. First of all, you need to, the system need to be able to calculate credit in real time, and need to be able to handle complex, you know, price formulas in order to calculate the exposure, and need to handle payment records, and need to handle FX, and need to handle any of the events that require a credit check. So for example, a releasing of goods, sending an LOI, like pre-trade and so forth. So I think absolutely the modern CTRM system is not just about being able to, you know, access online and so forth, and that's the essential. But modern CTRM system can really help you to manage this complex, you know, business process. I think that's one of the key things that we're actually working on in several of our recent projects right now. And to answer Alex's question in terms of reporting, oftentimes we actually underestimate the efforts of the reporting. We're thinking, well, your CTRM system is just a system of record. You can capture deals, you can, you know, the run settlements, you can store all this data. But the actual value of a CTRM system is being able to calculate all your complex formulas and be able to calculate your risk and be able to calculate your mark-to-market and then store them in the database and make them readily available when you need to run reports. Your report itself should not have all this complex logic. Those logic should be in your CTRM systems. Unfortunately, some of the old CTRM systems or even newer CTRM systems still didn't realize that. So they have to, in order to implement a system, you have to, put out this complex logic in the reporting, in the reporting layer, which is definitely a point.
If I can add something, I mean, just a quick and simple example. We are in a trading company. What we need to have is the basic position and the P&L. P&L seems to be simple when you look at that, but I've never seen any system providing a P&L including every components that we are looking for. I mean, futures integrated with physical costs, interest, FX. I mean, like 5-6 elements that we need together. I've never seen that in a CTRM. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but Alex, we definitely should talk offline.
Just in the interest of time, can we run the second poll question on cloud, please? And there's a good question actually posed by Grant Griffiths here. How much forward planning had vendors made to ensure adequate performance for cloud-based clients in the event of something just like this? And did you experience any technical performance problems initially when lockdowns, etc. started? I don't know if we've got necessarily the right people on the panel, but still, anybody got anything to offer with regard to that in terms of continuity and the vendor having done adequate planning around the software that you're using for such an instance?
Yeah, we don't use cloud at the moment.
We don't.
In terms of just this kind of even though it's not cloud, had you ever talked to the vendor of the software that you're using, even if not CTRM, but something that you're using internally about, business continuity planning and what would happen in an event that everybody had to work at home? I don't think it's something that many people would have thought credible even 6 months ago. So have any of you ever given any thought to that, just out of interest? How prepared were you for this? Anybody?
Yeah, we're not prepared to that, but actually it went well, so we didn't have to contact any vendor in this case. And yeah, working remotely, I mean, as long as you are able to identify your risk exposures on your system and you're able to put a plan, that's all you need to run your company.
And what about security? Were there any security risks that emerged from this lockdown, this remote working environment with the CTRM, for example, that you hadn't thought of previously or didn't expect to arise?
Well, there were more difficulties in accessing the system for when working from home. So there was all this VPN access, which makes things a bit more difficult. Sometimes it doesn't work. And then sometimes you cannot even launch the software. It takes some time to get started. But again, for us, the most critical part it has been a mix between difficulties in communication, because as you also highlighted, all of you, this remains the critical aspect that makes these processes more heavy and manual. And as Ken made the example on the credit side, we also on the market risk side, we have situations where we have a cargo which is loading, and we don't know exactly what are the BL quantities, the BL dates, the expected dates for the pricing, and it is all very, very difficult to get, because, for example, operators shipping are using certain systems, and these systems have to talk to the ETRM system, and the information doesn't match or doesn't flow in the same way, and is not interpreted correctly by the ETRM system, or vice versa. And this not only creates delays, manual work, and it also creates risk, and sometimes you can experience losses. And this probably has been amplified by the fact that we are in distant locations and we cannot even talk to each other. And this brings me back to the idea of why do we need more digitalization in all this process? Because if this number, this date, or this quantity is stored in a file or in a code or in a chain, and then this chain is accessible to every person in the flow, everybody gets the same number, the same information at the same moment. And this, for the moment, well, maybe it's just a dream, but for me, this would be the great step forward.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Alexandre?
that's a perfect example.
Yeah, was just that's one of the main criteria for the selection of our new CTRM. It would be to have a secured data and access. We have to be sure that there is enough confidentiality with the cloud base, because there is a little bit of worry, because now we are using servers in-house, and so it's one of the worry. But yeah, actually, the second point is really important, is to be able to track and to control the accesses and the audit trails of all transactions. So we have audits coming, external, internal auditors that could come and check what has been done. So there is this requirement. So we have to reinforce the security. That's for sure for the next CTRM.
Right, can we see the results on the cloud question, perhaps, just before the time runs out here? Okay, so it's interesting. So about, again, just over a third CTRM deployed in the cloud, just under half said no, and some don't know, which is fair enough. Ken, anything to add on that last point before we wrap up?
Yeah, very quickly, and I think the modern technology, security definitely is not a problem. I think it's still mainly in terms of someone putting the data, and it needs to be readily available for other people as well. So, for example, if an operation team puts a new bill of lading date, if the system does not calculate the new position, and then the new settlement calculation, and then someone needs to calculate it offline, either the person generating the invoice or the mid-office team. If the system can actually do that automatically, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to miss, hedge and causing problems. So this is very important. Yeah.
Again, I think we've got a couple of minutes left. I just wonder if any of the three of you have any further points you'd like to make, because we've wandered around a bit. Sometimes you may have had a point that you want to make. Anybody got something they want to talk about or say just before we run out of time? Nope. Okay, so let's see if there's any quick questions. Let's see. Well, yeah, there's just some comments. There's not much in terms of actual questions. So I guess we're almost out of time. The only additional thing I'd probably raise is just connectivity. Did anybody have any connectivity issues out with just the remote access from home, but in terms of other sites being unavailable? So the connectivity between your shop and somebody else's shop was at risk. Was there any examples of that during this period, if you understand what I'm saying? that disrupted business at all? Maybe price feeds or exchange links or anything along those lines?
Nothing unusual.
Nothing
I mean,
unusual.
We didn't face that, but yeah, we have to be careful because there were many attacks during this period. So maybe we're lucky, but I know that some companies have been attacked, and you have to be careful, yeah, from this point of view.
Okay. And what about vendors offering, different types of access to their solution, like from handheld devices and telephones? Do you think that became a useful feature or not as a result of the lockdown and remote working? So the ability to use a telephone to capture data or perhaps an iPad or something similar rather than a computer on the desktop, mobile devices.
Well, many traders ask that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that this would be quite complicated in terms of internal controls and security, and maybe also
But usually it's
applicability in the reality of this concept.
I know that some vendors have gone to quite a lot of effort to have a mobile aspect to their CTRM solution, and I've never really seen it catch on necessarily for all these reasons. And it just struck me that perhaps this was the very time when it might have had use, but it seems like it's still down to the same issues.
Yeah, Gary, I can
it would have been useful when traders are traveling and everybody was stuck at home. So, but for traveling purposes, I definitely agree. It's a big need.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Gary, I can add a couple of comments to that. We're a vendor, so we're actually very keen on making sure our technology is updated. In terms of our mobile access, we do have it, but the usage of that, like you said, is actually not nearly close to when they use the desktop or access from the computer. The reason is there's various needs. Sometimes they need to approve a deal. The management needs to approve the deal when they are not in office. And they want to maybe see quickly see the position and so forth, and check the credit, or someone's in the field. And every company actually have a different need in terms of the mobile access, but it so far hasn't really been a core thing that people really need in order to use the CTRM system.
Yep, that was my thought, and that's why I asked the question just in the last couple of minutes there. I think we're out of time.